So welcome back guys to another video, and I have to admit I am one of those folks who doesn't feel old. There's a lot of moments that I'm like, I forget that I'm like 33. I'm like, oh okay, I'm in my 30s. But there are certain things that happen, like gaming anniversaries, that's like the calluses. That when I hear a game's turning 10 years old or 15 or 20 or in this case 30, I'm like, wow, I am getting old and my lower back starts hurting. And of course today I'm going to be talking about the original Nintendo Game Boy turning 30 years old. That's absolutely incredible. That's so insane that this handheld has been around this long. And I'm going to talk about some of my memories. I'm going to talk about some games I definitely recommend. And if you're like me and you love the power of emulation, a product coming out later on this month that's definitely going to scratch that nostalgia itch. Now, when it comes to my humble beginnings of being introduced to the original Game Boy, let's go back to the Christmas of 1994. I was talking to my mom and she's like, what do you want Santa Claus to bring you for Christmas? And I had two requests, one or the other, because I knew money was tight, so I knew I couldn't get one or the other. I was like, I either want a Nintendo Game Boy or I want Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo. And I remember one night I was supposed to be sleeping and I heard my mom talking to my grandpa on the phone, and she's like, yeah, he's wanting either a Game Boy or he's wanting this video game that I really don't want to get him because the baby Mario just keeps crying and it pisses me off. Which kind of boggled my mind because this is something that Santa Claus was supposed to be getting, but I digress. I ended up getting the Nintendo Game Boy bundled with Super Mario Land, which to this day I still think is one of the most underrated Mario games. I absolutely love this game. It was a little different from your standard Super Mario Brothers, but it was Mario on the go and it was a pure gaming experience, because back then the only gaming experience you had on the go was the Tiger handhelds that felt, let's be honest, Tiger handhelds, they were just never really that cool, but the Nintendo Game Boy was pretty awesome. Now, with the Nintendo Game Boy having over 1,200 games in their library, including being region free, so you got a whole slew of other games from Japan to play, I'm going to be talking about 3 games you definitely should check out. The first game I want to talk about is Avenging Spirit. During a walk with his girlfriend, the player is ambushed by an agent of a mysterious crime syndicate who take his girlfriend away and shoot him to death. It's pretty brutal. Now, as a wandering spirit, he had the ability to possess most others, and he is summoned by his girlfriend's father, who researches ghost energy, and is given a mission to save her from the mysterious crime syndicate that holds her hostage, enabling the player to rest in peace. The gameplay is pretty similar to Alter Beast in the sense that you get a unique power-ups in each level, and you're a ghostly player possessing and progressing from stage to stage, but once you get hit, you return back to your ghost form, which isn't very powerful. I never played the arcade version, but I always enjoyed the Game Boy version because it was very unique, and what's awesome is you can still purchase it and check it out right now on the 3DS eShop. Mole Mania is a story as old as literature itself. You're a mole. Your family has been kidnapped by an evil farmer. Okay, so the story doesn't really matter at all in Mole Mania, but it's an excuse to set up the game's dozens of puzzles. As Muddy Mole, seriously, that's his name, you must guide a ball through each level by pushing and pulling and of course digging. It's more fun than it is a little goofy, but it's such a fun game, which is precisely what you would expect from a game produced by Shigeru Miyamoto. In fact, Mole Mania might be the most obscure game in his lengthy legendary resume. Hammering Harry Ghost Building Company is a wonderfully perfect concept, and it's a shame that the series has mostly been dormant since the 90s. You play as a carpenter armed with only a hammer, and you fight against an evil property developer and his army of shady builders. The Game Boy version also throws in zombies and ghosts for some reason, plus some side-scrolling shooter levels. It's basically the best version of the series that was abandoned far too soon. While there's been 8 games released in the Hammering Harry series, this was actually the last one to make it to North America until 2008 with Hammering Hero that was released on the PSP. It's a shame the series never got big in the North America region because the original is one of my favorite arcade games of all time. Now, what's really awesome about the Nintendo Game Boy is a lot of games are still pretty available. A lot of them are still pretty affordable as well, but you can also play all the essentials now on the Nintendo 3DS, and even if you have something like the Game Boy Color or even Game Boy Advance, they're backwards compatible, so you can enjoy a lot of these games in the original hardware. But if you're like me and you like to dabble into emulation, I cannot recommend enough a product coming out later on this month by Retroflag, a company that specializes in customized cases for the Raspberry Pis. This is called the GPi, and you guys are seeing footage from ETA Prime, a YouTuber I cannot recommend enough. If you're curious about the Raspberry Pi or other emulation devices, that's the channel to go to. He does some great product reviews, and this is essentially a Game Boy on the go, powering the Raspberry Pi 0, so you can play all your Game Boy games, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, NES, Super NES, PC Engine, just so many things that you can play on this little device for just $79.99. That's how much the case is going to be, and all you have to do is buy a Raspberry Pi 0, which is just like $10. So to me, I think it's a pretty affordable way to enjoy games, retro games on the go, and still have that little bit of nostalgia as well. So definitely check that out. If I get a chance to get this case, I'm hoping it doesn't sell out too fast. I will be doing a review on it because I am stoked about this. But anyway, guys, that is some of my memories and just looking back at the Nintendo Game Boy. Wow, it's crazy, it's 30 years. But this is where I want you guys to come in. I want you guys to leave some comments below. Tell me some of your Game Boy memories. Were you in the back of the minivan playing with the worm light, trying to play some Kirby? Or maybe you befriended someone because they had a link cable and you had to catch all the Pokemon? Or maybe you just enjoy battling your friends in WWF, WrestleMania, or Street Fighter 2. I love to hear some of this, guys. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.